Hello and welcome back to Two Cats Writing Podcast. I'm your host, Catrina, the Lady Writes. And I'm
your
here
other
with
host.
my co-host.
I'm your other host, MJ from GSC Nation.
And we are excited to have you here today with us. We are going to be discussing querying. And this is a topic that comes up a lot in both aspects of the publishing industry. Both those who are traditional and those who are indie talk about this a lot.
Yeah, it's everybody's favorite and most despised thing, I think. So it's good for us to get around to talking about it. I feel like we should start. Okay, so you have queried and I have queried, and obviously we made very different decisions and chose different paths based on our experiences with that. And I feel like your experience with querying was very bad, and we should start with yours probably. Do you want to tell us what?
My experience with querying is very bad in the understanding of what the industry is today and what it should have been when I was submitting.
Yeah.
As a new author, I started sharing one of my stories on Twitter at the time in excerpts, and I would link parts and I would share the parts that I was most excited about. And I had first a person who explained the querying process to me reached out, explained it to me, and I got excited, looked it up, and started that process kind of half-heartedly because the book wasn't done.
Can you, just for context, can you tell, like, when-ish, you don't have to exactly say what, like, year this was, but, like, roughly around when was this?
2007, 2008?
Okay.
Yeah.
Continue.
Would have been somewhere in that range. And then in 2009 is the first time I had what was introduced to me as an agent reach out to me based on what I was sharing. Now, ultimately, I ended up with two people who identified themselves as agents that reached out to me based on what I was sharing, and they both really liked my story, and they both really were very enthusiastic about it for a little while. However, one of them I'm pretty sure was a scammer. The other one I think was a brand new agent who was unproven and just happened to like my story, to be honest with you. And that's based on the conversations that I had with both of these people. Now, the red flags the scammer gave me was that they didn't come right out and say I was going to have to contribute any money.
Oh.
But they gave me enough of a red flag that said, I'm not actually going to sign you if I don't get what I want, basically. And it sounded like money, an upfront something. Even though they hadn't said those words exactly, there was like the stories you hear about groomers. That's what it kind of felt like.
Yeah. Well, and yeah. And we should state, like, really upfront, just in case there's anybody who doesn't listen to the rest of this podcast and, like, this is as far as they get. If any agent asks for money, suggests that you should spend money, refers you to editorial services or any other kind of thing where you would be spending money, it's a scam. Like, just straight out, it's a scam. Like, walk away right that minute. Agents work on commission only. They only get paid when you get paid, and they get paid directly, from the publishers. So you should never, ever, ever, ever be giving an agent money or their, like, third party whoever money. A lot of times when they say, like, oh, I would totally sign you, but you need some editorial work, and I'm going to need you to work with this editor. Here's their fees, or here's, they send you, they usually get a kickback from that. Like, it's a deal that they have with someone, and that is part of the scam. Like, all of that is a scam. If there's money anywhere in there that is not flowing directly to you, it is a scam. So just putting that out there.
That applies to any of the publishers that you may apply to directly in a small press capacity. There are hybrid publishers that are not your vanity press, and those are different. They're going to be completely transparent with you up front. They're not going to sell you a quote package deal, and they will support you in your sales. They may not do all the sales marketing for you, but they will support you because they'd much rather see you succeed and come back to them with another book where you're both working together again. Whereas a vanity press doesn't care. They want your money, and you're not going to be guaranteed quality or anything.
Well, because like the whole point, the hybrid thing is like, it's sort of like you're the author and the publisher are sharing the financial risk, right? Basically, like that's the kind of the concept up front. You're sharing the financial risk, and then you're also sharing in the profits from whatever you get.
Exactly. And you have to keep that in mind because it's so easy for us as indies to get sucked into some of these vanity presses versus a hybrid, because they look very similar, but they're really not. And vanity press are there to prey on you. They want all your money. They don't really care if you succeed. They're going to tell you need some huge print run instead of offering you the services on a POD until you are ready for a print run. And that will happen if you stick with this. But if you're not ready right away and they don't offer you that as an option, they're probably just trying to take your money.
Yeah. Well, because for those presses, those like kind of scam presses, the product for them is not actually the book that they're selling. Like that's not actually their business model. It's not making money from selling books. They're making money off of you, the author. Like that's their business model is authors pay them money. It really doesn't have anything to do with selling your books. And you hear so many really terrible stories about like books just never even, they people hand over all their money and don't even get a book.
Or if they do, it's such poor quality that you're gonna really
they can never sell it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so
and you don't need a huge print run, no matter what they try to tell you.
Right.
You're just getting started. It's gonna come. It doesn't mean it has to be today.
So you had those people contact you. You figured out one of them was kind of a scammer, and the other one you didn't really see how they had the contacts and stuff to really
it was
like sell your book successfully. Is that kind of how you felt?
No, it was more like I've kind of explained before with the indie versus traditional at the time. I was a single mom with 2 under 5 or 206. And that's 6 and under, whatever timing. And so I had to think in those terms. I had to think in terms of I needed what was going to make me the most money right now, as opposed to the most money in time.
Yeah.
And thus, this person who was absolutely interested in the writing, and we went back and forth and we talked. And honestly, I think they had the drive to possibly try to make something happen, but they were absolutely new to this part of the industry. First of all, they reached out to me and did not have me submit a full manuscript because I didn't have a full manuscript. So,
right. So that is that person may have been well-meaning, but probably had no hope of, especially if they were. Well, I'll get into talking about this in a little bit, maybe. But
yeah, they really did seem like they were well-meaning. They seemed like they understood what they were needing to do and how to go about it. I think if I could remember who, this is going to be terrible. I genuinely do not remember who they are by name. I'm sure if they popped up in my feed somewhere again, I would ultimately recognize them. But I couldn't tell you today what their name is at, almost 10 years later.
We'll assume that they had good intentions, if not perhaps the means to actually follow through on what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was the ultimate understanding that I've got with this person. And
Yeah.
again, you can mean well. You can mean well, and it can be beautiful, and nothing actually worked for both of you, which is kind of the problem. You need it to work for both of you.
Yeah.
And if you talk to an agent and they don't seem like they can push your book, they know you don't want that. But the other thing is that the numbers he was talking about being able to do would not have worked for me at all. I think he was talking about like a $5,000 advance. And when you're a mother of two, that's like 2 months of bills or 3 months of bills.
Right.
That's just not enough.
I mean, and a $5,000 advance is not unheard of in traditional publishing at all. So like that's like that could be exactly the advance. So that was basically your querying. That was it, and you were like, yes, no more.
Exactly. And then I pivoted. Yeah. But I made that decision because it needed to be made to take care of my family. Now you, on the other hand, you took this in a different direction.
I did. So when I decided that I wanted to start writing, like for real, like writing, trying to do it as a career, I barely even considered doing indie because I had done that before with music. I just knew that wasn't something I was going to be up for. Like all having to do all the promotion myself, having to do like all the stuff that indie authors have to take on and do themselves. I knew that wasn't for me for multiple reasons, and I think we discussed that in our first podcast, so I don't need to go into that in depth again. And I might have even talked a little bit about my querying process. I'm not sure. Like the first book that I wrote and that I wanted to sell, I queried it for a year. And I followed all the advice. So like I think that by the time I was doing this, which was 2018, was when I first 2018 is when I wrote that book. 2019 is when I was querying it. Or I started like late 2018 into later in 2019. And by then there were so many resources online. I don't know whether these things were available when you were querying or like thinking about querying, Catrina. By the time I was doing it, there was so much advice, so many places, and we're going to put links in the description for you guys to find all of these resources because they're really, really good. One of the places was the Absolute Right forums, is the place where I like first started like really looking at people like talking about querying and like having a lot of input to say, having a lot of also help for each other, and people were willing to critique your query letter and stuff like that. So there was a lot of information. I knew exactly what to do. It was write a query letter which has your pitch for the book and a little bit about you. And there's a lot of really specific advice about what you should put in a query letter. And pretty much all that advice, like people give the same advice pretty much everywhere, and you should follow it. And it shouldn't be long. But then you also need to have a fully written manuscript, but you are only going to send sometimes, depending on the agent, they just want your query. Sometimes they want a query and the first 5 pages or the first 10 pages.
Follow directions.
Yeah, follow directions. And you also need to have a synopsis, which was the thing that tried to kill me, which is where you write a relatively short, ideally 1-page synopsis of the entire book, start to finish. It needs to have everything in there, including like all the big plot points of the book, and it needs to tell how the book ends. You need to have all this stuff ready to go because agents will want some combination of these things: query letter, first pages, and synopsis. I followed all the advice, which was starting out like sending it in batches of 5. so that you're not going to be querying every agent you're interested in right away, because you want to gauge the responses that your query is getting. You want to know, like, if you are getting form rejections, that kind of thing, like getting just like all rejections, maybe your query isn't strong enough. If you're getting any kind of feedback, maybe your query is okay, but your first 5 or 10 pages need to be stronger. Like, you really want to gauge how well your query is performing before you send it out, because you might want to rewrite it. You might want to rewrite your pages. You don't want to include all, like, you don't want to send it to your top 5 agents like right away. Like, have a little mix there, so that if you decide that query isn't working, you haven't exhausted your opportunity with those agents, because most agents, well, actually all agents do not want your query a second time. You can query them one time with that project. Some agents, if you have significantly revised your project, might be willing to, like, read a second query about it like 6 months later, at least. At least 6 months later. And you also, some agencies, you could submit to like any number of agents, not more than one at the agency at a time. But some agencies are a no from one is a no from all. So if you pick your agent at that agency that you think is the best fit for your book, and you query them and they reject you, that's a no from the whole agency. So you do not query that agency with that project anymore. So you want to make sure that you are being careful from the beginning. Some mistakes that I think I made early on, I got a couple of full requests really early. And I think that gave me, so like if an agent likes your query and or pages, they might request a partial manuscript, like sometimes like 50 pages or something like that, like a longer amount of pages to look at, or they might request a full manuscript. I got a couple of full requests real early, and that gave me, I think, a false sense of how strong my query and pages were, because after that there was a lot of dead air, like a lot, like form rejections, or just like no, some agents have a no reply means no policy. And then I also think that I so wanted this book to be my debut, like it was the book of my heart. In so many ways still is the book of my heart, and I hope that it will see the light of day one day. I loved it so much that I think after a while I also wasn't picky enough about who I queried. I cannot tell you how many times I got a rejection from somebody and then 6 months later heard something awful about that agent, like, and I would think, whoa, I dodged a bullet there. But I had a lot of those experiences, those who I dodged a bullet moment. And I think that was due to, like, after a while, I just wasn't as picky about who I was sending it out to. That said, I don't have a lot of regrets about that period, because the whole time I was querying that book, I was writing my second book, which I would end up getting offered on really quickly. Like, I think I've probably told this story on the podcast before, but you know, like I finally took that one book off. I stopped querying it, and I had written this other book in the meantime, and started querying the new book, and I had multiple offers like in 2 weeks, and I had queried like so few agents with it even. So it's like that. There was something about that book that just hit so much more. Like, agents could see my query and the pages, and they immediately had like, oh yeah, I can see how this fits in the market. I could see how this could be a good fit for me. Like, they immediately thought that. And I think my other book was a much harder sell for multiple reasons. So it was such a different thing. And so I really have no regrets at all about that.
So
I will.
let me ask you this.
Yeah.
How How do agents that you've encountered feel about you querying multiple books at once to different locations?
Oh, do not do it. I wouldn't do it. Not in the same. I think or query the same book unless you are querying in totally different demographics. Like if you're querying YA, but you also have an adult book, you could query the adult book at the same time. If you're querying a YA novel, you query that novel and only that novel, because if they offer on that novel and then you get an offer from a different agent on a different book, that is gonna be sticky business. Like, it's very much expected that you're going to be querying multiple agents with this one book, but keep it to that one book, because what you do is if you do get an offer on the book, if you have someone, you get the call and they're going to make an offer, then you go back to everybody else who has your query who didn't already reject it. And you send them another email with like offer in the like offer received in the subject line, and to tell them that you have an offer so that they know that they need to decide whether or not that gives them the opportunity to decide whether they also want to offer. Because there's going to be like a timeline and you're going to have to say yes to an agent. And once you've said that yes to that agent, that is your agent, at least for the immediately foreseeable future. That is your agent. So you want to make sure that you're querying that one book at a time, unless, like I said, it's totally different demographic. One book at a time. You can query it to as many agents as you want, but you should start off slow. Do it in batches so that you can get feedback. The other thing, the big resource that I think probably did not exist when you were querying before, which I cannot recommend enough. Like it held my hand all the way through querying, was Query Tracker, and we'll put the link to that in the description as well, which allows you to, it's a huge database of agents. It allows you to search agents. It has information on each agent, like what agency they're with, what genres they represent. It'll have, you can go back and see comments from writers who have queried them to see what their experiences were, to see what their responses looked like, and to find out what the response time was. Like, so you get kind of a sense of how long it takes them to respond, because some agents send out responses really fast. Some it'll be months and months and months, up to like even years. Depending on their process and like how many queries they get. Like, keep in mind that agents, like I've heard of agents that get like 800 queries a day. So reading queries and answering queries is only like a tiny portion of what they do, because they also have like the authors they represent, and they're doing so much work for those people all the time. So getting new clients, most agents have pretty much a cap on the number of people that they know they can take on their list at a time. Getting new clients is a thing that they always are doing, but it is by far not their only job. So it can take them a really long time to respond. So Query Tracker will actually let you track all of that stuff. And you can make a query list on Query Tracker. You can keep track of the agents you have queried and their responses and where their queries are in the response. The person who runs it keeps it really like pretty up to date. Like if agents leave the business or they switch agencies, if they're closed or open to queries, you can they have a premium membership. So you can do most of this for a free membership on Query Tracker. They also have a premium membership that is super cheap. It's like $25 a year when I had it, at least. Like not much, like a year, like $25 a year that gives you like access to extra metrics. If you're one of those people who really loves data, I am one of those people who really loves data. I love data.
You and me both.
Yeah. It gives you like more of a detailed look at where various agents are in their query timeline. Like it compiles all the information it has from everybody else's query lists, from when they query and when they got responses. So you can see who's slow right now, who's fast right now. You can see what kind of thing, how many of their full, like if they request a lot of fulls, how many of those turn into offers. Some agents will request way more fulls than others, while not offering on more. They read more full manuscripts before they make their decisions. You can see like what percentage of query tracker users, got offers out of their full requests. But like really, like you don't need, like the paid membership is absolutely not necessary.
That's great.
To use it really effectively. I did use one because I like data. And I also wanted to start a query list for a second book. Like you can only really keep track of one book at a time if you are on the free membership. But like that's going to work for most people. That's what most people are doing. The people who make Query Tracker also operate a service for agents that's called Query Manager. And a lot of those agents, so agents who use Query Manager, obviously it's a service that they pay to use, and not every agent uses it. But if they do, it's you basically do your query through the Query Manager form, and they customize like what kind of questions they ask on the form and what you have to upload and stuff like that. But another thing that you can see if you're using Query Tracker is you can follow the progress of your query in real time. Like you can see like where it is in that agent's timeline, like how many people are ahead of you, how many queries are ahead of yours, if they've marked that they're reading yours, like there's a lot of information you can get from that too. So it's a really valuable resource. I thought some authors don't use it at all. They prefer to keep their own spreadsheet or whatever for querying. I found Query Tracker to just be a lifesaver for my kind of brain. So that is a great resource. And then the last resource that I want to point out, and we'll put this in the link as well, is Victoria Strauss's Writer Beware. Going back to the scammers and what we often refer to as schmagents. Not agents, but schmagents. She keeps a really fantastic list and a blog about current known schmagents who are like, so like some people are actively scamming. And there's a new type of scam that they've started to do in the past few years, which is to actually impersonate real agents and like make fake agent websites with like real agents on them and they're real clients and stuff like that, but they are fake. That has happened, and she keeps a running list of those known impersonations so that if you get contacted or you accidentally query a fake agent, you can look at there and make sure. And usually that'll end up coming up with one of those red flags, like they want money somehow. And you'll find that out. And then you should run away, no matter who you think it is. It is not that real agent, probably. Yeah. You might think it's this big time agent, but it probably is not if they ask you for money. But then also the schmagents. So, and there's kind of a couple categories. There's like the real scammers, and then there are just like kind of schmagencies who are agents who in many cases are really well-meaning and like want to be literary agents, and they love books and like are really passionate about books and authors, but they genuinely do not have the industry contacts to sell your book. Or the experience with agenting to sell your books. Like signing with a brand new agent is completely cool. Like an agent who is very new in the business, but you want that agent to be at an established agency with mentorship from senior agents at that agency. And that if you are on the call with them, they need to be telling you about the mentorship that they are getting. They need to be telling you that these agents are like helping them all the way along the way, that they've been learning from them, and they are following in their footsteps and have like all these resources to go to, because the experience and the contacts, like, that is no joke. Like, they need to have that to sell your books.
Mm-hmm.
They need to know editors. They need to know the tastes of specific editors, know who your book is going to appeal to. They need to really, really, really deeply understand the market and how to position your book to sell it to a publisher. Because you've heard probably lots of times people say that a bad agent is worse than no agent. It absolutely is. Like, an agent, because of the fact that, so we've talked about how with agents, like, once you've sent a book to an agent, like, you can't send that book to that same agent again.
Right.
This is also true with publishers. Once your agent has sent your book out on sub to a publisher, to an editor at an imprint, they cannot do that again with that same book. Like, that book's hopeful future with that editor, or even that whole publisher, is done. And with rare exceptions. There are very, very rare exceptions where your agent might think like, hey, we've done a big revision on this book based on blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. I think this editor might be open to seeing it again, but they're going to do that based on personalized knowledge too, of like, that's going to be an exception and not the rule at all. So if you have a schmagent, they send your book all over Kingdom Come. They don't really know which editors to send it to, who's really appropriate at which imprint. They send them all at once. Like, your sublist should be going out in tiny, tiny batches as well. Because if you thought there weren't enough agents for writers, like enough agents to go around for writers, that's even more like bottlenecked at the next stage. There are even less editors and publishers. So, your sublist should be going out in batches. If you have, like, there have been like just horror stories of agents who just like spam the sublist, like spam everywhere. And then when you eventually realize that agent isn't going to sell your book and like can't sell your book, and that book is dead. That book is dead in traditional publishing. Like, you can't, there's nowhere new to send it. There's nobody else. And that's tragic. Like, that's really, really awful. And this isn't to say that your agent, your absolutely fantastic, absolutely qualified, absolutely experienced, and with contacts agent is going to be able to sell the book that they signed you on, because plenty of books die on sub. They do. But you with a schmagent, like, you just probably don't even have a shot, like, with that person who doesn't have the experience and the contacts to follow through, and may not know that they don't. Like I've said, they don't all have malicious intent, or they're not out to necessarily screw you. They just might not really have the experience and to even know that they don't have enough experience. Like, anybody can set up a website and call themselves an agent. So you want to look for experienced agents at an agency that is well respected, that has sold a lot of books. You want to know what books they've sold. You want to know who their clients are. You want to know that they sell books in your genre. Like, an agency that is mostly sold like nonfiction is not necessarily going to be the best place for your fiction to be. Like, they may not have those, that may be not where they have contacts. So it feels daunting. I know, like, querying is so terrible. Like, it absolutely is. It's terrible. It takes potentially a long, long, long time. It's filled with rejection. You will get a lot more no's than yeses. You will get a lot more form rejections than you will requests. pretty much.
Remember, that does not mean you are a terrible author.
It does not. And you you got to stick it out. It is a little bit of a numbers game. And also you got to learn when you think like, okay, maybe this book really isn't, maybe it's not its time. Maybe there's just no place for it in the market right now. People just can't envision that place in the market for it right now. And and be writing another book. Like while you're querying your book, be writing another book so that when you take that book off, when you if you decide if that book ends up not being the one that gets you an agent, you have something new that's like ready to go and ready to be out there so that you don't feel like you're giving up. Yeah.
You know what I find that's fun about that statement? As an indie, one of the best things that you can do to sell your first book is to write
another book. Kind of for different reasons, right?
Exactly.
Different reasons, but same result in so many ways.
And it's not unheard of that even if you end up in a situation where the first book you're querying, and I only know this from other people who've queried, it's not unheard of that the first book that doesn't get picked up, but another book down the road does, that you can't come back to your agent with that first book down the road. So it's dead right now. If it comes to that point, it's dead right now. You don't have to give up on it completely. Maybe you'll go back and tweak it in a little while and try again. But then you'll have already had an agent doing the work for you, and they'll know what your voice sounds like, and they'll be able to better help you get in the doors that it fits better.
Yeah. Like so that first book that I didn't get an agent with, that got, shelved in favor of the second one, which is the one that's coming out in March. I love that book so much. And my agent, the person who's my agent right now, did read it and gave me feedback on it and like told me why he thought that it was hard to sell. And we've talked about the ways to make it not hard to sell or less hard to sell. Like it might end, like I could try to take it more in one particular direction, or another direction that we've talked about that I've considered is rewriting it as adult, like because it's sci-fi, which is really a hard sell in YA right now. Or it's not even, I don't even consider it sci-fi, but it's got enough of a vibe, I guess. There's no sci-fi, but it's got enough of a vibe that that he thought that it would be a hard sell in YA right now. And your agent has the chops to know that. And also can be the person who, let's say in a couple years, all of a sudden sci-fi and YA is hot. That your agent is like, hey, you remember that book? Remember that book you've got? This might be the time for us to look at that again, because I think actually I can move that right now. I think that I can think of 10 editors right off the bat that I think would be interested in this right now. That's the kind of conversations you want to be able to have with your agent, who is your business partner. And they have a deep understanding of traditional publishing that you don't have. And that's their job, is to have that. They know what they're doing. They know, and they have the contacts to back that up, that knowledge up with action. And I guess maybe the last thing that I would say to querying authors out there, I see you out there. I feel your pain. I know you're thinking querying is the worst experience of your life, that it's so demoralizing that it just feels like gatekeepers. It's so hard, and the rejection is just destroying your soul, and you can't take it, and like you just long for that day when you'll get an agent and everything will be easier. I regret to tell you that being on sub is 12 million times worse. Because it is actually querying, but to fewer people, and you're not allowed to talk about it. You authors querying out there, talking on your social media about your bad experiences, sharing your war stories, getting moral support. When you're on sub, it is like you're feeling all those feelings and having all that rejection, and the only person you're allowed to talk about to about it is your agent and like your cat, and maybe secretly, maybe your really close friends who are also authors and have been through sub, but like you can't talk about it in public. You cannot, and your agent will tell you cannot. For lots of reasons. It is bad. It's actually bad for your book on sub for you to talk about it on social media. So I hate having to say that because it's like the opposite of the it gets better. It actually gets so much worse.
It's not the opposite. It's explaining what to expect in the next step, which is exactly what we need to be doing. That people need to be prepared. And if you
the next step is more pain. but okay. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Want to be traditionally published, you can do this. It's a lot of patience. And you keep writing, and there's nothing stopping you from moving into the next book once you've got that one finished.
Yeah. And this is coming to you from like I'm talking to you as a person who had a book die on queries, who was querying a book and had to stop querying it, who got an agent and had a book on sub, and that book died on sub. It is one of the rare occasions where a book that died on sub was magically resurrected later, as I switched agents. But nothing bad about my first agent. I do not have bad things to say about my original agent, and in fact, my second agent was her assistant originally. And there are a lot of reasons why. Like that whole thing that's a whole other story. But my agent, it just happened to be where my agent was like, hey, I think there are some new imprints and new editors and new opportunities for this book since it was on sub before, and I'm still like kind of heartbroken that we didn't sell this, and I think we should try again. In the meantime, we were already working on a different book to get ready to put on sub. So we put that book back on sub to a very, it had to be a limited group because there were a lot of places we couldn't send it anymore, like who had seen it before. But there were also some new opportunities, and we ended up selling it that way, just like 2 or 3 weeks out of like the decision to take it off sub and to start querying the new book that I had been writing. Right. I've had to stop querying. I've had a book die on sub. I have been through all the stages of pain, and yet I am seeing my debut come out in just like a couple of months. By the time you hear this podcast, who knows how much closer that will be. And you can do this, and there are legitimate reasons to make this choice, and legitimate reasons to not. And it isn't all pain. And at least through sub, even though it is worse than querying, at least you have your agent there with you. You have a partner. So there's that.
Okay. So your final thoughts are that querying is absolutely worth it if you want to go traditional?
Yeah, I think it is. Stick it out. There is a payoff.
And your debut novel is coming out in March?
March 3rd, 2026 from Page Street Publishing. It is called I Was a Teenage Death God. Coming to a bookstore near you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us on Talking About Querying. If you have any questions we haven't directly answered as we were relaying our stories, please leave it in the comments below. Hit the subscribe button or the follow button, depending on what platform you're on. And we are looking forward to talking to you in the next one.
Bye.